All those in favor, Senator Comerford.
Thank you, Mr. President, and through you to our colleagues. Mr. President, I rise in strong support of this amendment, and I want to thank the gentleman from Andover, the Chair of Ways and Means, the Senate President, for their work to craft this important legislation to stimulate and bolster our Commonwealth's economy. And I want to also tip my hat virtually to the Economic Development Secretary, Secretary Von Howe, Undersecretary Stolba, both of whom were in Northampton this evening to talk about the potential in the base bill that the Healey-Driscoll administration sent forth, one that recognizes, I believe, geographic diversity and the potential to stimulate the economic development opportunities in farms and farming and our food system. And that's the focus of my remarks this evening. I represent hundreds of farmers in the Hampshire-Franklin-Worcester district, and I'm really thrilled that this session I was appointed after our sister Ann Goby, the extraordinary first chair of the Joint Committee on Agriculture, became Rural Affairs Director. I was appointed acting chair in this first ever joint committee. And I get to share that chairpersonship with Chair Paul Schmid, who is retiring this session after a very esteemed career, and he has been a wonderful House colleague. This Senate has a long history of supporting agriculture. We're going to have a moment for Paul Schmid's retirement.
We are going to continue.
We're having a romantic moment here in the Senate. Okay. Mr. President, you are a poet. This Senate has a long history of supporting agriculture, and I'm going to close with a story that takes us back to 2005 and features our Chair of Ways and Means. But friends, nearly a year ago tonight, I know many of us, most of us, all of us remember the flood that devastated much of the Commonwealth, especially central and western Massachusetts. And it was our Senate that led the response effort in a unanimous Senate that offered $20 million as part of a House-Senate administration partnership to help the affected farms. I've rarely been prouder in my time in the Senate as our quick response for Commonwealth farmers. And we made that announcement in a farm field of Bernie Simorowski, a farmer in Hatfield, one of those who was devastated, and the Senate President, Chair of Ways and Means, the Senator from Taunton, and others were there. In 2020, we passed one of the first laws in the nation focused specifically on healthy soils, saying to farmers, we know that you are part of the climate revolution, and we are going to make sure that you have both the technical assistance and the funding needed to make this transition with us. We have also made significant commitments to the Healthy Initiatives Program, or HIP, a program that's been touted across the nation as exemplary, both in how it supports farmers and how it supports those who are food insecure, as well as MEFAP, the Massachusetts Emergency Food Assistance Program, FSIG, which is the Food Security Infrastructure Grant, the Food Literacy Programs, Farm to School, and so much more. And as good as all of these are, farmers still earn between 94 and 96 cents on every dollar they spend. Think about that just for a moment. Between 94 and 96 cents on every dollar they spend. That is an unworkable economic proposition for our farmers. And yet they keep going. They keep going. How many of us, friends, would keep going if we lost between 4 and 6 cents on every dollar we had to spend to do what we loved? How many of us have that grit and grace? This bill seeks to do better than simply close that gap, because the Senate embraces the adage, no farms, no food. We also know that without sequestration, the sequestration superpower of natural and working lands, we won't reach our necessary climate goals. This bill contains important provisions for farmers and our agricultural communities, including a new line item to support growth, economic competitiveness, and sustainability of our agriculture, commercial fishing, and cranberry growing sectors. That's a new initiative from this Senate, as well as $100 million in Rural Development Fund and $30 million in an authorization for a food science hub at UMass. Food science is the new frontier, and it was understood by the Western Massachusetts Economic Development Council that it was a way, and Secretary Howe and the economic development team she runs, that food science, food innovation could be one of the ways that Massachusetts breaks through, claims a national leadership. UMass Food Science Hub right now is #1 in the nation. Not #2 or #3, #1, 5 in the world. And we're going to invest in that through this bill. But policy solutions are needed as well. Our farmers will still struggle to keep their businesses afloat with land costs that are 4th highest in the nation. Massachusetts land costs are 4th highest in the nation. They will still struggle to adapt to a rapidly changing and unpredictable climate. I hear about struggles like this all the time from the farmers I represent. All the time they tell me that they're trying to make ends meet. And we can see their struggles in the following data, and I want this Senate to be under the weight of this data. In the 5 years from 2017 to 2022, Massachusetts lost 7% of its farmland. 7% of its farmland gone. Once a piece of land leaves farming, it does not come back. You do not build a farm on top of a strip mall. That's 27,000 acres, 27,000 football fields worth of land that was once growing products for us or grazing animals is gone forever, never coming back. And the reason for that is the downward economic pressure. That is 2 times more farmland loss than any other state in the nation. 2 times more. Shame on us. Shame on the Commonwealth. We say we love our farms, and yet we watch. Together we watch as a legislature, as an administration, as a Commonwealth, we watch 27,000 acres go away forever. Farmers face enormous pressure to sell their farmland to the highest price. Who wouldn't? We all have to put children to school. Those of us who have children, we have to send them to school, we have to feed them, we have to put clothes on them. It's an unworkable economic proposition. But farmers in Massachusetts are adaptable. They are determined, they are passionate, and many have stayed farming for many generations. That's why I filed the amendments to increase and help diversify their revenue streams while preserving valuable farmland. These provisions, especially those embodied in Amendment number 32 that we're discussing, will modernize and streamline the Agriculture Preservation Restriction Program with respect especially to agritourism. And every farmer I know has to have a micro business, like the legendary Mike's Corn Maze in Sunderland. They have to have other businesses other than farming because they lose between 4 and 6 cents on every dollar. So we have to modernize the APR program to let them have agritourism in much easier ways than they've been having to jump through those hoops until now. These provisions will also ensure that horticulture land is taxed as horticulture land. And so that the kitchen where a farmer turns strawberries into strawberry jam and the farm stand where the jam is sold is farmland. So the strawberries themselves are farmland, the kitchen is farmland, and where we sell the strawberry jam is farmland. It's all farmland because it's products grown from the fields, and then they value add those products and they can sell them. And in this amendment, we enable MDR to purchase farmland with the intent of selling it to a farmer, ensuring that farmland remains farmland, and allowing the state to sell land with equity in mind. This is very important. MDR is one of the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources is one of the only state agencies in the nation that doesn't have the ability to seize a farm with, of course, state support and hold it till it can find a buyer. That means our elderly farmers that don't have a generation coming up behind them because they're losing money every day, and many of our young people can't understand that economic proposition. They have to sell to development. That's part of the 27,000 acres that we have already said goodbye to. So MDR is going to be able to take that land, hold it, and wait for a buyer. and use some of our state investment to help bring in the next rising generation. These provisions also include a commission to study and make recommendations for promoting racial equity across the board in farming, in the agriculture industry, and we focus on opportunities in rural, suburban, and urban agriculture settings. I want to congratulate and thank the senator from Lowell and the senator from the Outer Cape. They also have important agriculture provisions. I want to thank the two Senate co-chairs of the Food System Caucus, the minority leader, and the gentleman from Everett. The Food System Caucus in the legislature, many of you know, is bipartisan, bicameral. It's a big dog caucus. We are strong and we are powerful and we are hell-bent to help farmers and growers and fishermen, fisher persons, and cranberry farmers in these next years. So I'm going to close with a story that the chair of Ways and Means told me just before, as we were talking about this amendment. He reminded me that when he was in the Senate in 2005, he and this Senate actually allowed farm stands by right for the first time. Farmers used to have to go through a whole big process of permitting in order just to put up a farm stand. Tonight, we're saying their farm stand can be taxed as ag land. And what that tells me is that this Senate has had a very long history. I'm just one person in a history of people who have had amendments to support our farmers and growers and all parts of the agriculture system, and that bit by bit, taught by our constituents about what's needed, like our chair of Ways and Means heard from his constituents that they needed an easier time building a farm stand and then went to work and passed that bill. We as a Senate need to continue to listen to the agriculture industry and do what's right by them every chance that we can get. Charged by our constituents and in partnership with the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture Resources, and I have to say it's one of the finest pair of leaders in that I believe are working today in the nation. I'm grateful to see these provisions move forward today and to continue working with my great colleagues in this room and the farmers in my district and advocates in the Commonwealth. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Question comes on adoption of amendment.